Hey guys, how's it going? Today we are starting out in the Hartley because it's raining at a pretty steady rate outside. It's been raining on and off for the past 3 days. It's so soggy. I do hope that it lets up just enough for us to get out and do a little bit of perennial cleanup this afternoon. I don't know if it will, but that's what I want to talk about today. I have a list in front of me titled, Should I Clean Out My Garden in Fall or Spring? Huge topic of conversation, I feel like, in the gardening world, and I see so many different methods coming up here and there and different opinions. I thought we would go through both the pros and cons of cleaning out in the fall versus cleaning out in the spring. And right from the gate, I will say that we take kind of a hybrid approach and an evolving approach. I don't like to put myself in one camp, 100%, because I feel like trying out different things can be helpful sometimes. So if I miss a point or a thought that you might have, please put it in the comment section down below so we can talk about it. So we're going to start with our cleaning up in the fall list. I have 5 pros listed. The first one is that cleaning up in the fall might fit your schedule better. I put that as the first one because I did for years. I cleaned out everything in the fall because I worked down at the garden center full-time, like full-time plus. We worked a lot of hours and I just simply did not have time in the spring. And I know a lot of professionals in the growing industry do a lot of their clean out in the fall as well for that very reason. And that was back in the days when our area was listed as a zone 5. We've been since moved to a zone 6, but my plants did great. I cut back lavender, I cut back everything in the fall, and it just was great. Which leads me to point number 2. When you clean out in the fall, you have more time in the spring. That just makes sense. You have time to watch your garden, wake up. It also, I feel like it saves energy for planting as opposed to having to clean out. You don't have to stare at the mess for the whole winter long. And a lot of the spring months, I see a meme surface on Facebook every year, and I'm sure we'll see it here in a couple of months, where it says, do not clean out any of your flower beds until it's at least 50 degrees consistently. If we waited for that, some years we'd have to wait into May to clean out our flower beds. So, you just kind of have to balance what works for you. Number 3 on the list is that cleaning up in the fall will eliminate a lot of bad insects that you might overwinter in debris. If you've had a particular problem with thrips, which was our problem this last year, whitefly, aphids, spider mites, mealybugs, all those things. If you don't clean up your stuff in the fall, they'll just kind of like eggs or, some life stage of the bug will overwinter and kind of hibernate in the debris and then wake up in the spring. The flip side is if you eliminate, overwintering some of these bad insects, you're also eliminating debris that good insects, beneficial insects can overwinter in as well. So again, something to think about. But for our experience this last year, we left everything through the whole fall and winter, and I don't think I've ever done 100% like leaving everything alone. And we had such a tremendously bad thrip problem this year that we didn't spray, but we used biological controls. We released a predatory mite in order to help combat the thrips, and it didn't 100% get resolved this year, but it's something you have to think about. Do you leave your debris so that those beneficials will live, but then the next year you've got all these bad insects too, so then you're gonna have to spray, or you're gonna have to do biological controls, or you're gonna have to possibly address something. That was kind of point number 4. I melded those two together. So point number 4 was eliminates the need for a lot of insecticide spraying the following season because you won't have that huge boom population of bad insects. The 5th one is it eliminates and reduces potential fungal diseases. So if you have a particular problem with certain things, especially like powdery mildew, when you eliminate places for those spores to overwinter, then you just reduce the amount that you see it the next year. Now let's talk about the cons to cleaning up in fall. The first con is that you're going to be exposing soil. When you get rid of the tops of plants and leaves, the soil is all of a sudden exposed. If you have a lot of winter moisture, or if you have sloping land and things like that, you could be causing potential soil erosion and or runoff, which is not great for your soil. Our particular spot it's okay for because we don't usually deal with a tremendous amount of moisture. We do get snow and rain and things like that, but not to the point where things are floating away. We also have a very flat property, so things just kind of tend to stay. So that could be something that just depends on your particular area and climate. The second one we've already talked about is that it may eliminate some beneficials because you're getting rid of some of their habitat. But then again, you have to think about the bad ones that you're also overwintering in there that you will have to spray that might kill the beneficials as well. the next season. Third con is that it might be a potential risk to your plants. When you're eliminating kind of that nice warm bed that's over your plants, either the tops of the plants that are protecting the crown or leaves that have fallen around, that's an extra layer of insulation to keep your plants protected. So if you have any severe weather or long, dry, windy periods, your plants may be better off with something over the top of them. I've not really seen a huge difference, cleaned out or not, with my plants here. And the fourth con, if you are cleaning out your garden, you're going to be eliminating some winter interest. And there are some plants, and this is kind of where we take the hybrid approach, that just look beautiful in the wintertime. Sedum, echinacea, eryngium, ornamental grasses that are smaller, those things that hold their structure in the wintertime, we leave those alone because they add so much. For those of us, especially in the north, who have 4 distinct seasons and we have a long winter where it's like cold and dreary and brown, you want your garden to still look beautiful. So if you clean everything out, then you're going to be eliminating some interest. Now, one little thing I do want to mention about cleaning up in the fall is you do want to be careful about the stuff you are cleaning up. Anything that blooms or performs on old wood, don't touch that in the fall, because you're going to be eliminating blooms or whatever, berries for the next season. So that's my list for fall. Now my list for spring. Now this is a little bit of a shorter list. The pros of cleaning up in spring is, one, it might fit your schedule better. Maybe you're busier in the fall and spring just works better for you. Then more power to you. Second pro is that it's less potential risk to your plants. You're leaving that nice warm bed over them throughout the winter months. They're kind of all tucked in. That's a good feeling as well. And the third pro is that the beneficials are safer through the winter months. So I did see an increased number of beneficials this year. We had bumblebees like crazy. We had honeybees and butterflies and all kinds of things this season, and I do attribute that to leaving a lot of our stuff alone in the fall. But then again, we had the massive thrip issue, which negated our ability to give away any flowers this season, because I didn't want to give away buggy flowers. I didn't want to spray. It's just something we're trying to balance and figure out the best approach. And then the one con that I have listed for cleaning up in the spring, we've already talked about, and it's overwintering the bad insects because you left them alone all winter. Might necessitate the need to spray them or use biological controls. Biological controls like the predatory mites that we released this last year are awesome, and I plan to do it again next year. I'm hoping to get away from sprays as much as possible. I'm going to start earlier with biological controls as more of a preventative than waiting until the problem was really big. But they aren't as quick. They're not as quick as spraying, but I feel like even in the end, we had them applied via drone, which you don't have to do that. You could hand sprinkle them around your garden. I feel like the cost of biologicals is cheaper in the end than buying the chemical product, the backpack sprayer or the pump sprayer to get it done, and then the time it takes, and you usually have to do it on a weekly basis for several weeks to get on top of a problem. It still might be quicker than using biologicals, but again, there's all those pros and cons there. Either way, whatever approach you take, you should consider cutting back your hostas, peonies, and large ornamental grasses. Those are 3, no matter which method we are going with, we always try to tackle in the fall, which is what I'm hoping to do today. Hostas and peonies in particular, they winter over things like slugs and snails and diseases like powdery mildew, particularly bad. So you eliminate the tops of those, you're going to eliminate a lot of your problem. And then the large ornamental grasses, unless you have them staked up, they tend to be unable to handle a lot of winter moisture or heavy snow loads, and then they end up flopping over and looking like a huge giant mess, and then they're harder to clean up in the spring the next year. And that one, is kind of just up to you. There are some totem pole grasses. The panicums out in our south garden, I'm going to leave. They're not staked up, but they're pretty strong structurally. So unless we get really heavy snow, I think they might be okay, but it's one of those things I'm okay cleaning it out in the spring if I need to. So that's pretty much it for my list. I just wanted to go over those pros and cons and just talk about it, because I don't think that there's any one right way. I think you have to find something rather that fits your life, your schedule, what makes you feel good about your garden space. It should be a pleasant process, and we should love to be out in our gardens, and however we need to make that happen and however we feel best about our space, I feel like you should do it that way. All that said, again, if you have any thoughts or comments about this subject, I would love to hear them down in the comment section down below. We might be able to make a further video about this, or we'll talk about it in the recap, I'm sure, because I'm sure I'm going to think about some more things after I'm done today. So let's wait just a little while longer, see if this rain lets up, and we're gonna get out and I'll just show you how I cut back my peonies and hostas and grasses. It's pretty simple, but we'll do it anyway. Thanks for listening to me ramble. The rain never did let up the other day, so we are out here now. I was just gonna show you an example of each one of those perennials we talked about that you should cut back every fall. Starting with hostas. These are the Miss America hostas we planted earlier this season. You can see they've kind of turned into a pile of mush already. And this is just something that we want to take care of now. So I've got my pruners right here. We just come in and cut the whole plant back just an inch or two above the soil surface. So here's what it looks like in the end, and this is the pile that we want to discard. Before we move on to peonies, I think we're going to go ahead and take care of all the rest of the hostas, at least in this area, since we're right here. These are all freshly planted this year. They did great, but time to get them cut back. Okay, we've got all the hostas cut back in this area. There are a few perennials though that we're going to be leaving alone. I thought I would show those to you. We have the Acorus ogon, which is a beautiful small ornamental grass. So the small ones just don't create as much of a mess after the winter, so they're a really great one to leave for winter interest, and we can clean them up in the spring. Same with the heucheras right here and the heucherellas that are just beyond it, right there at the curve. They're just a really nice one because they are a semi-evergreen. I want to say they're like in the range of zone 4 through 9 or 5 through 9, something like that. On the higher end of that zone range, they'll stay more evergreen through the whole winter, and they do hold for us decently when we have a mild winter. But for those of us on the lower end of that zone range, sometimes, most of the time, we have to cut them back come spring because they look a little bit raggedy, but they do last for quite a long time. I mean, you can see right here in November how nice they're looking. Oh, hey, that was looking so sweet there for a minute. Boys, I just love the color and texture and just this little spot. I can't wait to continue on developing this area. And just behind this space, there's another flower bed I thought I would show you because this is a perfect candidate to be cleaned up completely in the fall because you can see how much growth there is. Well, right now it's looking pretty good and we might leave it just for a little while longer. It's a perfect area for insects to overwinter because it's such a thick jumble. I mean, we've got some mallow in here, there's salvia and veronica, there's some Jupiter's beard, roses, there's a perennial like a spider mum in here. Let's see. Really pretty white one, but it can be those extra thick areas where things will want to winter over. Okay, so now that we're done with this section here, we're going to run out and I'll show you the peonies. Out here in the south garden, I've got a few peonies and some ornamental grass that needs to come down. And Erin is mowing up leaves. That's what's going on over there. But here is one of the peonies. This is one of those that we transplanted from the back garden, kind of where the pond is. And I thought for sure, especially this one, I'd killed it because it was huge when I transplanted it, and it shocked and flopped over, but it came back beautifully. And we're just gonna kind of do the same thing with this as we did with the hostas. We're just gonna take all the stems down just above ground level there, and that way it just takes care of any issues, kind of like that. So we just have a few more of those to cut back. There's 2 more back here, and I want to say both of those are the Coral Charm, or is it Hawaiian Coral? That might be 2 separate varieties. Either way, it's a coral variety, it's beautiful. And then I've got an Ito variety right here, which blooms a beautiful, huge, light yellow bloom. Same thing, we're just gonna come in here and cut these stems back. And the last thing we talked about were ornamental grasses, which we haven't had any kind of severe enough weather to make any of our grasses look bad or like they need to come out at this point. But I know that there are a few that will need to come out, so it's kind of a preventative thing at this point. But for example, we have a lemon squeeze pennisetum right here. This one just naturally has a lower growth habit. It's denser. I think in the wintertime, if we do get a heavy snow load, it will probably weigh it down in the center. But it's one of those that I'm gonna leave alone. We'll see what happens. But if we move down this way, we can see a panicum, and this one's a patchy rose. And this one already started to fall. You can see it's kind of like flopping down on the backside here when we had a heavier rain later this, well, it was maybe early fall. So I know that this one just doesn't have as strong of a growth habit, and it's gonna wanna flop over and it will become sort of a mess. So we'll take care of that one today. And let's take a look at the totem pole panicums, because those are my tallest grass that we have. But they are a very upright, strong growing grass. Look at these. They are just a phenomenal grass. I highly recommend this one. They just grow so well for us. We have a grouping of 3 here. There's a grouping of 3 there. We've got one over on the other side. There's a few other grasses in here too that I think I'm gonna leave. The Niagara Falls panicum right there is a fairly new grass. Looks so pretty. But anyway, this is one that I'm gonna leave up as well, because unless we get a super, heavy downpour, they usually stay pretty nice. You can see like they're just a stiffer grass. So grasses are one of those things that, if you have a mild winter with not very much snow, you could leave all of them up and they would be absolutely beautiful. But if you have a wet, soggy, snow-filled winter, it can become a mess. So it's something that just over the years, you kind of decide which grasses to leave and which ones aren't as big of a pain to clean up in the spring. I see some perennial geraniums that need to go though. Oh my word, it's like a mat of brown right here. We need to clean that up for sure. So what I'm gonna do is finish cleaning up the peonies. We'll clean up a couple grasses, the geraniums here that, they look bad. And then we'll leave you with some nice views of Erin cleaning up leaves on the grass, because that's always satisfying. So I hope this video was helpful. I know, especially for those of you who are just getting started in your gardens, it can be an overwhelming thing to try to decide what is best for your space. There's so many different methods and different opinions out there, and we're all trying to make the best decision for our gardens and really for our own schedules and our own lives. Like, it needs to fit in order for it to be a harmonious thing. So my approach through the years has been to try to keep a somewhat open mind about the whole thing and be open to let my process evolve. I mean, we're always learning new things, and I'm willing to try new things out. And I think that's a good space to be in, because one size doesn't fit all. Every area is a little bit different. We all have a different approach to it. So yeah, I just thought it would be a fun thing to just kind of open up a conversation about it. Would love to hear your opinions down below. In the meantime, let's get after the rest of this work. See you guys in the next video.